Hello and welcome to H2OMICS, the Calsense podcast that gives you insight into the smart irrigation and sustainability world. I'm Carolina Alban Stoughton. After months of economic uncertainty due to supply chain issues, extreme weather events, and inflation, the green industry doesn't seem to be slowing down this year. If anything, demand for more efficient landscape irrigation has increased. However, labor shortages, triggered by record low national unemployment, continue to be a big challenge to meet high demand. Could smart irrigation technology be the solution to help address labor shortages in the green industry? What is 2023 going to look like when it comes to landscape management? To answer these questions and more, our guest today is the Territory Manager for the state of Texas at Irrigation Station, a heritage landscape supply group company, Scott Heidman. Scott is a licensed irrigator who has been in the industry for 37 years, including more than 21 as part owner of an irrigation distribution company. He has been president of the Texas Irrigation Association and board member of the Dallas irrigation industry. Welcome to H2OMICS, Scott. We're excited to have you on our podcast.
Hello.
You have spent a lot of time in this industry. What brought you to it, and what do you enjoy the most about working in irrigation?
Well, what brought me to it is my father was in the irrigation industry, started working for Weathermatic, and then opened up his own company with Irritech. I've just always been a part of irrigation, and nothing else really seemed like fun to do, so I've just stuck with it. It's really enjoyable. It's really fun. There's a lot of good people in this industry.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I'm sure it was a family affair because I read somewhere that also your brothers were in the industry.
My middle brother is the vice president of Irritech, and then my youngest brother, Seth, has got his own business, Irrigation Design and Consulting. So this has been a family affair for all these years.
So with so many experience in this industry, there's so many years accumulated in your family also. I'm sure you have seen a ton. How do the past few months compare to other periods in your career?
The last few months have been trying for everybody between product shortages and labor shortages, and the market really hasn't slowed down. If anything, it has sped up. We were still delivering a lot of product the weeks before Christmas and Thanksgiving, even after. It seems to be the rush, I think, before the lull that we're going to see. Usually there's a downtime, during the winter, Thanksgiving, Christmas time. We haven't seen it. It's just been 110 miles an hour. I will be glad when it slows down.
Yeah, and what about Texas in particular? Because we've seen this shifts and these impacts that labor shortages, supply chain issues have had nationwide. But let's focus on Texas. In such a big state, is water scarcity a statewide issue now, or will it become a statewide issue soon? And what do we do about it?
Water has been an issue. It has been discussed heavily for the last 10 to 15 years. The amount of people moving into the state, and I don't remember the numbers. It was an astronomical number. Cities have gone to regulating how much water you can actually use. How many times a week can you water? I know that the city of Austin right now is in talks to looking at getting rid of 50% of the landscape that needs to be watered on all new houses. We've got cities now that are looking at pressure regulated spray heads. And on the backside of that, I see more school districts, municipalities, large commercial buildings, management companies looking at how can we use less water uh, I think people are starting to realize it's going to be a problem and it's going to be here quicker rather than longer. And so it's starting to happen.
hmm it's interesting you mentioned that getting rid of landscapes. When they say that, what are they thinking about replacing with?
Stone, boulders. It's whatever they can do to get rid of the actual watering. I'm not sure how they're going to do it. We're going to go from something that is, grass and plant materials less expensive than rocks, haul them around in the labor. But that's what they're looking at. It's I've seen some plans where, you'll have stone, pebbles in front of the house instead of, landscape beds, and, your plant materials, is more geared towards our area and is going to require less water, fewer plants. Grass is going to be replaced with, either mulch and or larger stones. That's going to be a start, but it's going to take a lot more than that.
Yeah, well, here in California, we're in a desert, so there's been a big push to replace grass with drought-tolerant plants. Have you seen that, perhaps?
Yeah, we have, and they've gone from more of using spray heads to drip irrigation, and even from drip irrigation to point source drip irrigation, which uses even less water, but we're still learning. It's in cases we have found that drip actually is wasting more water than your regular above ground spray heads. So it's a long process, but people are starting to learn it.
Interesting. That's where, we believe, and I'm sure you do too, that we need to find a solution, and we usually rely on technology to come and help us out with these issues. So what do you think, from everything you've seen, what do you think is the most important technological innovation when it comes to landscape irrigation, and why?
Oh, by far, it's the controllers. We've gone from controllers that you pull a pin out and it'll water on this day to, basically having controllers now that will monitor everything from total gallons used to, figuring out which zones need to be running when, and looking at the weather and how much do we really need to water. That is starting to take over the industry, because here in a lot of places it was turn the system on, let the sprays run for 15 minutes, let the rotors run for 30, which was way too much watering. The more we can get technology to take it over and run it, the better off we'll be. The amount of time needed to water, most people don't know what that is, so they just guess at it. So the more that we can introduce a system that will take that over, the better off we're going to be. And then training those people that are actually going to be running it.
That is a great segue to my next question. So when we talk about labor shortages, we're not only talking about not having people, but not having the people trained enough to take on a job. So we know that labor shortages are not unique to our industry, but they seem to be having a significant impact on how much we can accomplish when it comes to irrigation. What are you seeing when it comes to hiring and retaining irrigation staff?
So hiring it's a very difficult thing to do, because once again, you don't have the pool of people that we used to have in years past. We've got people that we're hiring, we're putting in positions, and they unfortunately don't really know how to do it. So, or what I'm seeing is municipalities, school districts, things like that. You have one guy on a Monday is mowing, and the next day he's trying to fix a sprinkler system, and the next day he's trying to trim shrubs, or they're trying to fix a mainline break. we're seeing a shift in what people need to be doing. And I think that with the industry going in the direction it's in, we start training some of these people to sit behind a computer and actually program these controllers, which they want to do because there's a lot of people that just don't want to go out and dig ditches or put pipe in the ground or work out in the 110 degree weather or the 32 degrees when it's raining. The more that we can train people with technology, I think the better off we're going to be. It's once again flow meters telling us we've got too much water running and the master valve shutting down and controllers only watering when we need to water. It's not going to be 100% handoff, but if we can get 50 to 60% of this dealt with technology, I think that will help the people out in the field immensely. It's just the funding and the training.
So do you agree, for example, that deploying flow sensing and automated master valve closure to prevent catastrophic water loss from break, in addition to using data to pinpoint problems, is a good start?
Oh, it is. And I have sold central systems for years, and my philosophy has always been if you want a central control system, you need to do all of it. That is master valves, that is flow meters, that is pressure regulation, that is training the people that are actually running it. A mainline break of a 2-inch piece of pipe, I mean, you can be 110 gallons a minute. And if we don't have flow meters, that water's just running down into the gutters and we're losing all of that fresh water. Flip side of that is, do I have a nozzle that has come off of a spray head, which the flow meter will pick up? Or if we've got underflow, we've got things that are plugged up so it's not watering efficiently. So all the way around, yes, master valves, flow meters, and the controllers that can read it, I think are the best thing for this industry.
So how can we, as part of the industry, can help spread the word and let people know that this technology exists and that it can actually help tackle labor shortages in the industry?
I think that there's a lot of people that know about it, and once again, the more we talk about it and have stuff like this, the better off we are. I have spent years meeting with people, and it has been, this is what needs to be done. Part of the issue is the overall upfront cost to get it going, and that's what does tend to scare some people off. At least that's what I ran into early on. Now they're looking at it, we need to save $1 anywhere we can. Okay, fine. So we go do this investment of X number of dollars. Here's your ROI, return on investment, in 6 months to a year. You're now saving water, and these systems can also be tied in with ball field lights. I mean, there's a lot more than just irrigation that these controllers can be hooked up to do, and then we train the people to do it. Once that's done and people start to see the savings and what it can do for them, the better off they are. And I'm in the middle of 3 of them right now. They can see the ROI and where do we get the funding, and they're looking for the funding, but it goes above and beyond just irrigation. We don't have enough people to do all of the checks and balances. So how do we bring more technology into this?
Yeah, I mean, and this is a very important point, that deciding to invest in a project like that, knowing that they will get that ROI. So, for example, we're hearing a lot about the limited availability of capital funds for improvements. We know improvements need to happen, but there's no capital funds to get them started. So do you think Calsense solution, irrigation management as a service, can help with that?
Yes, I do. And one of the ways that I have found to get around some of that capital improvement funding is we don't go do it all at once. We we pick an area and we go start there, and whether that's 1, 2, or 5 controllers, we get that started. And once we start saving the money there and they get comfortable with it and they see how to use it, then we move on to the next phase, and then we move on to the next one. Very rarely do I ever want to go in and just change everything, because that's too much for most people. We have to start somewhere. We have to learn the system. Calsense is an extremely good system. I'm very impressed with it. But my first question to anybody with systems are, the best one in the world is the one that people that are operating it understand it. What can it do? What can it do? And how do we use it to the best of its ability and our ability? So you get them in using it on the first phase. Now they get comfortable with it. There's a follow-up training class, and now they're starting to ask questions, because now they're getting into the system, because in the beginning we have no idea how it works. Once they get into it, now they can start asking the questions, and how do we make this work? Then you see the light go off in their head and go, wow, we can do so much more with this. And we're in the middle of a system with a school district right now, and they're seeing the advantages of it. But once again, we're going in those phases. It takes a couple of years, but that's how we can get around doing it all at once and not having any funding.
Mm-hmm. That's how it's been done traditionally, and with IMS, which is Irrigation Management as a Service by Calsense, the difference is that it enables full deployment upfront with the ability to enable savings that can help pay them as a service as time goes on. So it's a different approach because we believe that these issues are urgent, and the best way to get them solved is to deploy everything quickly without having to put those capital funds. Like, I believe you can grab from operational funds instead. So there's different approaches to do it. We're just hoping that people embraced that technology.
Well, and if you go to 5 different groups, they're gonna want to broach it and do it 5 different ways. We just have to figure out what they're comfortable in doing. One may want to slowly get it going. On the other side of it, they're going to want to get it all in and then start getting it installed. Well, now you have your people that really don't know how to operate it very well. So that leads to issues. But as we move in time, and I look 2, 5, 10 years down the road, when a staff of 28 that was dealing with 132 controllers goes from that 28 down to 6, we now have a serious problem. Well, answer with some is turn the sprinklers off, or we don't run them all the time. Well, now the grass isn't getting enough water and the plant material is not getting enough water. And then we start developing cracks in the ground, and they start looking, grass starts dying, things start happening. So that's when some of the emergency happens. So by going in there and slowly doing this over time, then yes, they pick up on it. And then y'all's management system, we don't have enough people. Now that's where y'all step in, and it helps them to go do this. Because once again, I think in 5 years, it's going to be 5 times worse than it is now. That group of 28 doing all of those campuses goes down to 8, and then it gets down to 2 or 3. How do we deal with this?
Yeah, no, and also, so when you are talking to end users all the time, right? Providing them, offering them potential solutions to their water issues. So can you talk about the importance of choosing irrigation products that are well featured, durable, long lasting, and holistically supported?
Yes, I mean each site has a niche in what product goes in there. And once again, I don't like to sell cheap products. It doesn't do any good. It's what is this product good for, and who are we selling it to, and I mean, once again, you can sell somebody a controller that's really expensive. Are they really going to use it? Most people are not going to be comfortable with it.
Mhm.
So we either have to train them how to be comfortable with it, use it, or it's just a big waste of time and money. And then there's bad feelings all around. I only want to sell the stuff that works. I've done this long enough that it's just because you're cheaper doesn't mean it's going to last and it's going to work. You spend more time fixing and dealing with issues on the cheap stuff than it's really worth at the end of the day.
Mhm.
And people are looking at, end users are looking at, this is not just a one-time sale. This is a long-term relationship. And with anybody that I deal with on these central systems, that's what I go into it with. I don't want to just sell it and walk away from it and be done with it. It is, how do we maintain it and take care of it? And if there are issues, how do we fix them? I'm in the middle of two right now that were sold 10, 12 years ago, and there's a lot of issues, and I'm still trying to help them get those issues figured out.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's what's right for them at the right time also.
Yes, and
So,
it's getting people, it's getting people to understand this is, don't look at it just for today. Look at this for 5 years and look at this for 10 years. I mean, we figured out that anything that comes out, you're good for 10 years. And what is it going to look like after 10 years? And there are some groups, y'all being one of them, that I see that going longer than 10 years. Is the software being upgraded? Are the controllers being upgraded? Is it, that's what I'm looking for when I go sit down with people, is this is the direction we're heading. In the past, that was not really something that we looked at because there wasn't a whole lot of that technology out there. Now I'm saying, we got to look at this for a 10-year period, and some of it's just not holding up.
right. Yeah, no, that longevity of the product system software is certainly important because this problem, unfortunately, is not going away. Water scarcity is not going away. And if anything, it seems to unfortunately be getting worse. So that is a very important point. So what do you see happening in the industry this year and beyond? What kind of trends are you looking at? What are the things that are in high demand? If you can just give me a little bit of an industry outlook.
Well, and I'm having a hard time figuring that out myself. My crystal ball's all scratched up. It's
Yeah.
right. We're going to see a slowdown in this. We've already seen the industry slowing down. We've seen a lot of industry slow down. You look at the East Coast, you look at the West Coast, and you look up north. Texas has always kind of done very well in shielding itself from a lot of that. Trends, I think the trends are going to be what's working and what's not working, and I hope that we see the trend of get away from the cheap stuff, get away from the inexpensive stuff, and we look further down the road. I'm not as much into the day-to-day selling as it is more of the planning. One of the trends I do see is people are looking for longevity. How do we put this in? Because we do know that we have a lack of labor and we need to train people to operate this so they can spend more time doing other things. People are starting to look at flow meters and master valve and central systems, quite frankly, like I've never seen before. And it's how do we use this to the best of our ability and save water. And once again, I see more of a trend of people wanting to conserve water than just throwing something in the ground and walking away from it. I think with the slowdown of everything, and it's not just irrigation, home building, so forth and so on, I think it's going to some companies are going to go under and they're going to be working for somebody else. And those companies are going to look at how do we streamline and make things easier, more affordable? How can we still take care of folks, our end customers, but with less people? And technology, and I mean, if the irrigation industry can move along and do things like they've done with cell phones and get people comfortable with it, it'd be a whole different story.
Well, I think that's very exciting, because I think that technology is already there, and I've been hearing a lot about these big developments popping in Texas that are taking into consideration water conservation, because there's no other choice. So I think while there's been a slowdown, it is also exciting that there's technology out there that, if embraced, could definitely help the industry.
Yeah, the biggest problem the irrigation industry has is it's out of sight, out of mind. You don't wake up at 2:00 in the morning to check your sprinkler systems to see if they're running. These things are running, when everybody's asleep. So they really don't know if there's a broken spray head, if there's a zone that's stuck on, if it's still set up to water 3 times a day, every day of the week when the house was first built, and they're trying to get everything grown in and get the grass established and the plants established, and get that program to revert back to once every 2, 3, 4 days. But once again, the issue is it's out of sight, out of mind. We don't see it run.
Yeah, and I think that's important for us who are in the industry to definitely spread the word about the solutions that are out there, and how these solutions can help them conserve water, save in labor, and save money.
Yes, and I even see homeowners in our neighborhood, wanting to know more about it, so that they can do a better job, because now they're actually noticing it on their water bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, once again, that's a trend I see happening. I'm glad to see that happen. We've got a ways to go, but once again, it's like anything else. There's those growing periods and getting people comfortable with it, and using it, and let it doing what it needs to do.
That's right. Well, Scott, it has been great having you on the podcast, picking your brain and getting some of your knowledge and expertise on this subject matter. So we're certainly grateful for all the work you've done and keep on doing, and all the years you've put into our industry to make it better.
Thank you.
That was the Territory Manager for the state of Texas at Irrigation Station, Scott Heidman. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you'd like to listen to other episodes, visit calsense.com/podcast or search for H2OMICS on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, I'm Carolina Alban Stoughton.